The story starts way back around 360 BC, when the Greek philosopher Plato dropped two dialogues to Timaeus and Critias. He wasn't trying to start an internet conspiracy theory. He was just writing, doing his philosopher thing, probably not knowing that he was low-key creating the biggest, lost civilization, mystery of all time. In these writings, Plato described a massive, ridiculously advanced island nation beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now recognize as the Strait of Gibraltar. This wasn't some small island. He described a whole civilization that had ships, armies, architecture, and tech far ahead of anything Greece had at the time. And then, in a single day and night, it all disappeared beneath the sea. Poof. Gone. And for thousands of years, people have been arguing about whether Plato was speaking facts, exaggerating, or just trolling his students. But here's where things get a little wild. Most myths fade out over time. People either prove them wrong or eventually stop caring. But Atlantis? Nah. This one stuck around like an unsolved crime case. It moved from ancient Greece to medieval Europe, through the Renaissance, and now into modern pop culture, Netflix documentaries, and Reddit conspiracy threads. But why? Why Atlantis? Why does this particular story hit so hard? Well, maybe because the idea of an entire advanced civilization disappearing overnight feels possible. We know cities get destroyed by earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. We've seen natural disasters wipe out entire towns in minutes. So maybe the idea of Atlantis doesn't feel as crazy as it should. And because humans have always been explorers at heart, when someone says, "Hey, maybe there's a whole ancient city hidden underwater," we're like, "Alright, bet, let's go look." Plato described Atlantis as a super sophisticated empire. They had massive concentric rings of land and water, a layout so perfect it almost sounds engineered. Their temples were gigantic, covered with precious metals. The Atlanteans were skilled in engineering, architecture, agriculture, warfare, you name it. And according to Plato, they weren't just advanced, they were powerful. So powerful they tried to conquer parts of Europe and Asia. But then, supposedly because of their greed, their civilization fell out of favor with the gods. Nature stepped in, and Atlantis sank beneath the ocean in one catastrophic moment. And look, even for a philosopher, that's a lot of detail. Plato didn't just say, "There was a city that sank." He gave coordinates, descriptions, timelines, political structures. So naturally, people wondered, how did he know all this? Plato claimed he got the story from Solon, the famous Greek statesman, who heard it from Egyptian priests in the city of Sais. Now, Egypt is famous for keeping detailed records. They didn't play around with history. So if Egyptian priests really did tell Solon a story about a massive island kingdom that vanished, that means the idea existed way before Plato. But let's take a pause and ask the real question, was Plato telling a literal history? Or was he doing what teachers still do today, making up a story to teach a moral lesson? A lot of scholars believe Atlantis was an allegory. Basically, Plato was teaching about pride and corruption. You know, don't get too big for your britches. Ancient Greek edition. And that makes sense. Philosophers love metaphors. But here's the twist, if it was just a metaphor, why does the description match real geological events? There are places on Earth where massive cities were wiped out overnight. Take Thera, now known as Santorini. Around 1600 BC, a volcano erupted so violently it destroyed the Minoan civilization. The island literally exploded. Half of it sunk underwater. Archaeologists found advanced architecture, drainage systems, artwork technology far ahead of its time. Sound familiar? A wealthy island empire destroyed by catastrophe? That's basically Atlantis with a different paint job. But then again, the Atlantic Ocean has its own suspects. Some researchers point to the Azores, those islands way out in the middle of the ocean. They sit on top of tectonic plates, meaning sudden sinking or rising of land is totally possible. And when underwater sonar mapped the area, people thought they found massive structures. Now, those structures eventually turned out to be natural formations, but still this hype kept the Atlantis legend alive, making people wonder if something might really be hiding down there. Other theories place Atlantis near Spain, off the coast of Morocco, in the Caribbean, even under Antarctica. Yeah, Antarctica. People love tossing Atlantis anywhere that looks cool on a map. And honestly, it's kinda understandable. Every time we discover something new underwater, an ancient road, a sunken temple, a perfectly shaped stone formation, somebody somewhere claims it's Atlantis. Now let's talk about something interesting: human memory. Cultures around the world have flood stories. Not just one or two like dozens. Native American tribes have them. African cultures have them. Middle Eastern cultures have them. Asian cultures have them. Even Australia's Aboriginal peoples have stories about their coastlines sinking thousands of years ago. So maybe, just maybe, Atlantis wasn't one city, but a memory. A collective memory of coastal civilizations that got wrecked when the last ice age ended and sea levels rose more than 300 feet. Entire regions went underwater. Whole cultures vanished. People didn't have history books back then, but they had stories. And maybe those stories eventually evolved into the Atlantis legend. But let's get a little conspiratorial, not crazy, just curious. There's this idea floating around that Atlantis wasn't advanced like futuristic tech. They weren't flying around with lasers or Wi-Fi or whatever, but advanced for their time. Like big brain engineering, maybe early science, early forms of math or astronomy we haven't discovered yet. Think of the pyramids in Egypt. Or the stones at Pumapunku in Bolivia. Or the megaliths under the ocean near Japan. Human history has gaps. Big gaps. So the idea that a sophisticated ancient society existed before recorded history isn't completely off the table. Then there's the more extreme version, the theory that Atlantis had tech way beyond anything in the ancient world. Energy systems, machines, knowledge we lost. Most scientists aren't buying that, but here's the thing: scientific skeptics once said Troy didn't exist either. Then someone actually found it. They said the Amazon didn't have ancient cities. Then LiDAR scanned the jungle and boom, entire civilizations showed up under the trees. They said humans didn't arrive in the Americas until 13,000 years ago, but recent discoveries suggest humans were here way earlier. So science is always changing. What we think we know today might look dumb 100 years from now. But whether Atlantis had super technology or just really impressive plumbing, the important question is, could an advanced civilization have existed on Earth more than 12,000 years ago? The traditional answer is, nah, impossible. But new archaeological findings are challenging that. Look at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. That site is over 11,000 years old. It has stone pillars, carvings, architecture way beyond what we thought hunter-gatherers could do. Nobody expected something that complex to exist that early. So if Göbekli Tepe blindsided the whole scientific world, what else is out there that we haven't found yet? Still, science works with evidence, and right now the evidence for Atlantis as a literal city is thin. Not non-existent, just thin. There are no verified ruins that match Plato's description. No inscriptions. No artifacts. But people argue that if a massive natural disaster truly wiped Atlantis out, evidence could easily be buried deep underwater, crushed by earthquakes, or covered in sediment miles thick. The ocean hides everything. It's like the biggest storage basement on the planet, full of lost human history we just haven't opened yet. One of the wildest things about the Atlantis story is how many different cultures feel connected to it. Some Caribbean legends talk about sunken cities. Some indigenous American stories talk about giant waves swallowing entire nations. Egypt claimed they remembered a story about an ancient empire destroyed by water. Even Ireland has tales about lost lands that sank under the sea. When so many different cultures tell similar stories, it's hard not to wonder if they're all remembering the same event in different ways. Now let's get into the psychology of why Americans, especially, are obsessed with Atlantis. Because let's be real, if you live in the United States, you've definitely seen Atlantis theories on TV, in movies, in video games, and memes. Americans love mysteries. We love treasure hunts. We love the truth is out there vibe. And Atlantis fits perfectly into that headspace. It's like the ultimate challenge: find the unfindable. Plus, Americans grew up watching stuff like Indiana Jones, National Treasure, and History Channel documentaries that make everything seem like a clue to a hidden ancient secret.